This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time! Presenting the host of the Top 1% podcast, Sam Gordon! When I was 5, and in walked a tall black man through the door that I recognized from TV, right? And I said, "Dad, look." And he goes, "So we'll go say hi to him." And his name was Cassius Clay before he became Muhammad Ali. It had a very huge impression on me.
The Cassius Clay one, man, it gave me goosebumps because, man, Muhammad Ali has been one of my idols growing up as well, mate.
But the thing I learned from the Cassius Clay encounter is that let people know you're in the room. You know, be kind to everybody, right? Treat everybody with class. Be a role model to your sphere of influence and treat people the way you want to be treated.
Hey, you've called some absolutely massive fights in your time. I've always been super intrigued. What fight do you believe was the most electric atmosphere that you walked into and ring announced for?
It's very hard for me to say that, so I can only point out ones that stand out. At that time, I didn't have the money because I wasn't working at the time. And I went to my mother and I asked my mom if I could borrow $75. And she said, "Son, I don't have it. I'm sorry. I can't give it to you," right? 2 days later, she came up to me and handed me $75 in cash. I overhear my parents in the other room talking about they can't pay the rent that month. I got tears in my eyes. I felt so sad. I was cried thinking about it. And I thought, you know what? I just borrowed $75 from my mom. She can't even pay the rent. I will never, ever borrow another dime from my mom and my dad again. As a matter of fact, I'll do everything it takes to make money so I make sure they have nothing to worry about the rest of their lives.
What was the best piece of advice you potentially ever received from a coach or a mentor?
You know, I've learned a lot on my own in the streets.
Yeah.
In respect to announcing.
What you believe is the number one character trait of the top 1%?
And the same thing, mentality of a fighter relates to mentality for business, right? Same thing.
G'day listeners and welcome back to the Top 1% podcast. Now today I have an extremely exciting episode for you guys. For anyone who knows sporting, you undoubtedly know who Bruce Buffer is, the famous Octagon announcer of the UFC. Now today we interview Bruce and I ran through so many different things with him, from literally calling the Octagon the ring since 1996, so almost 3 decades calling the biggest fights, all the different people that he's met the whole way through his journey, the guys that have come and gone, the rise and fall of champions, and you know, people from the very, very start of their journeys the whole way through. He's seen just about everyone in the game get the whole way through. Today, we discussed both his early upbringing and the formative events that actually shaped his life and built the drive that's within him. We discussed business, how he prepares mentally before every big fight, what still drives him at 68 years of age to still be pushing as hard as he is and growing and building and still being as passionate as he is about the sport today as he was at the very start. If anything, it sounded like he was more passionate about what he's doing now than even when he was when he very first started, and the energy that he carries into every single fight. You'll hear it on the podcast and you really figure out and understand what makes this man tick and what made him tick, what went through his upbringing, his journey, everything to really bring that to the fore as well. The best advice he ever received from a coach or a mentor is included. And as always, what he believes is the number one character trait of the top 1%. Now, the interesting part of this is obviously he's been and seen so many goats, like proper goats of the UFC, world champions, and seen them when they started at the very start all the way through to when they won their world titles and retaining world titles as well. So it was a really, really interesting conversation to pull all of that out of it. And then we also wrapped up with a bit of a funny one of, you know, his most interesting characters, the most interesting characters in the UFC that he's come across as well. So there's some really, really cool and funny and intriguing little stories within it, guys, that I know you're going to take a lot of value out of. And I'm absolutely pumped to be sharing the mic with Big Bruce Buffer today, guys. And I know you're going to bloody love today's episode on the Top 1% podcast.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Bruce. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Cheers to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, mate. Mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Top 1% podcast today, mate. And I'm really looking forward and excited to diving into your story today.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's an honor to be on your show.
Thank you, mate. Man, you have such an iconic introduction, mate, and just such an iconic voice in the UFC, man. And so many people I was talking to this morning at the gym about, you know, that I was interviewing you today, mate. And so many people were so G'd up, mate. Honestly, you're such an icon, man. So really looking forward to diving today into a little bit of your backstory, mate, and what you believe really drives high performance.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words.
Mate, my absolute pleasure. Man, the first thing I wanted to ask you was there a formative event in your life, mate, either in your early life or in your adult life that you believe contributed and gave you the drive effectively to push you to the level that you're at now and effectively, man, be the best in the world at what you do?
Well, there were a couple events as a child. When I was five, my brother was seven. We were at a hotel in Philadelphia, and I was with my parents. And in walked a tall black man through the door that I recognized from TV, right? And I said, "Dad, look." And he goes, "Well, go say hi to him." So we went over and said hi to him, and he spent about 10 minutes talking to us and leaning down and paying us attention and everything else, shaking our hands, asking our names. And his name was Muhammad Ali, or excuse me, his name was Cassius Clay before he
Wow.
became Muhammad Ali. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
back in like 1965 or so. And it had a very huge impression on me and it lasted with me. And then the other thing that happened, which I talked about recently on social media, as far as my entrepreneurial attitude, when I was 16, my friends and I wanted to go to a ski trip, right? 2 hours away from where we lived in Los Angeles. And at that time, it was $75 for the car, the gas, the car, my share of the condo, the lift tickets, which, this is going back. This is like 1973, okay? So a lot cheaper than today. And I didn't have the money because I wasn't working at the time actively. And I went to my mother and I asked my mom if I could borrow $75. And she said, "Son, I don't have it. I'm sorry. I can't give it to you, right?" 2 days later, she came up to me and handed me $75 in cash. And I went on the trip, had a great time. Um, was really appreciative of my mom. She said, "Don't tell your dad." And I couldn't understand why she said, "Don't tell your dad," right? 2 weeks later, I'm in my room. It's about midnight, and I overhear my parents in the other room talking about they can't pay the rent that month. And we lived in Malibu, California, but we were middle class. My dad had just ran Fortune 500 companies, and he had stopped his business because he wanted to become a writer and quit with the money he had in the bank. So we 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 hung together as a family. And when I heard that, I got tears in my eyes. I felt so sad. I was basically, cried thinking about it. And I thought, you know what? I just borrowed $75 from my mom. She can't even pay the rent. I will
Mm,
never, ever borrow another dime from my mom and my dad again. As a matter of fact, I'll do everything it takes to make money so I make sure they have nothing to worry about the rest of their lives. And it started an entrepreneurial attitude with me, which I could go in deeper for. And I eventually, within 2 months later, because we were working these trade shows as a family to make money and pay the bills, which again is another story. But there was a jewelry booth there was making jewelry, coral and hishi and turquoise necklaces and bracelets and
yeah, right.
earrings. And I learned the business and I started buying supplies. And for $5, I would make a set of earrings or $10 a necklace and I would sell them for, 40, $50 at school. And I started clearing like 800, $1,000 a month when I was 16 years old,
Wow.
in high school and 16 or 17. And it just, hey, there's ways to make money. And I realized that. And that
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit hung with me. I started my first company when I was 19 and I haven't worked for anybody since then, of course, except for the people I represent, such as the UFC. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial spirit that really took me. But the thing I learned from the Cassius Clay encounter is that let people know you're in the room. You know, be kind to everybody, right? Treat everybody with class. Be a role model to your sphere of influence, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And always be honest. Very, very key factor in life.
I love that, mate. I absolutely love that, and all such interesting stories too. But that the Cassius Clay one, man, it gave me goosebumps because man, Muhammad Ali has been one of my idols growing up as well, mate. So it's mate, that's a crazy story, man. I appreciate you sharing
Thank you. It gives goosebumps to me even to think back on it.
it. Mate, you've called some absolutely massive fights in your time. It really, I've always been super intrigued. What fight do you believe was the most electric atmosphere that you walked into and ring announced for?
Very hard. It's very hard for me to say that. The reason why, Sam, is that I've announced thousands of fights and maybe 1,000 or more events, so I can only point out ones that stand out, right?
Okay.
Um, UFC 100 with Brock Lesnar when I jumped and did a 360 in the air in front of him, but it wasn't just that. It was the fact that I did it after being egged on by the UFC fans on the internet and Joe Rogan for 6 to 8 months, to pull that off in the Octagon, which is not easy to do when you got 25,000 people staring down your throat and you're working
That's a bit of
live. And
pressure.
yeah, and I tried it 3 times in my room and slipped on the carpet twice before I went down to the arena. But I mean, I've been a martial artist my whole life. I can throw almost every kick you can imagine. And that pulled off. But aside from that one, there was more of a monumental moment because it was the 100th pay-per-view show the UFC had, which is big in itself, and then pulling off the 360, that was a key moment. But another one would be the first Ultimate Fighter finale when Stephen Bonner fought Forrest Griffin. They had that amazing fight at the end, and we were on Spike TV, and everybody tuned into that. And I realized that at that point, with all the money and the millions of dollars that Dana White and the Fertitta brothers have invested in this, we were in danger of going out of business at one time. And I realized that now we're about to take off. And that was a very monumental moment. And there's been many others. The Sphere event we had at the Las Vegas Sphere just um, last fall, big event, going into other countries, whether it's um, selling out the O2 Arena in London or in Montreal. Just every country has its own flavor. As we enter these new countries and we have these successful events, these are monumental events that are because we're expanding the brand worldwide. And
Yeah.
I could go on and on and on. There's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many, so many. Every time I think I've seen the greatest UFC ever, it happens 4 weeks later. We just came off one of the best
Yeah.
shows ever in Montreal just last Saturday night.
Yeah. I can imagine. I can only imagine the atmospheres, that would be coming in with such massive events every single time as well. And like you say, it's almost every month, right? That there's another absolute cracker, mate. I love that, man. Just one question I had for you as well, like for yourself personally. I know you've been doing this for such a long time now, but what does your physical and mental preparation look like before you go and get in the ring? In the octagon, to really call those fights.
Well, I take it very seriously. A fighter trains for a fight, and I train consistently to stay healthy, to be able to travel and do what I do, and to go in and give my 100% on fight night. And every night to me is like my very first night. I treat it very humbly, and I realize that tonight is the time, and this is every time that I have to prove to myself, to the powers that be, to the fans, to the fighters, that I deserve to be in the octagon. And I'll end the show and feel like I hit a home run or maybe criticize myself for a couple things. But the night before a show, when I'll be 68 in 2 weeks or next week actually, and I can still, do what I need
You're
to
looking
do.
pretty good, mate.
Oh, thank you. All natural. Thank you very much. Still got my six pack. But
I love it, mate.
with that being said, and all kidding aside, well, not really, but stay healthy, stay healthy and be ready to perform. And the night before a show, I get a really good night's sleep. I literally want to sleep 8 to 10 hours if I can before that show.
Wow.
And then the morning I get up, have a nice power breakfast, treat myself properly nutritionally, uh, get a workout in, usually not with weights, but cardio and stretching
Okay.
and a little bit of yoga mixed in, yoga moves and stuff like that to keep my body loose, meditation, get my head in the
Yep.
moment. And then what works for me is when I get to the arena, as soon as I walk out into the arena and I feel the energy from the crowd, that's the key moment right there. The
Yeah.
energy from the crowd will drive me. And the more
Yep.
energy I receive, the more I can give. And granted, I did shows with COVID where we were at the UFC Apex. Maybe there was 100 people in attendance, and we're all wearing masks, and I've got to, make it sound like 5,000, 10,000 are in attendance. But that's the announcer's job. The show is
Yeah.
not about me, but it's about me enhancing that moment for the fans and the fighters. And that's
Mm.
that's what I have to do. I never thought I'd become a
Yep.
cheerleader. I became the ultimate cheerleader. So
the ultimate cheerleader. I love that, mate. That's awesome. Mate, I'm curious as well, mate. What was the best piece of advice you potentially ever received from a coach or a mentor?
I've learned a lot on my own in the streets,
Yeah.
but in respect to announcing, when I asked my legendary brother Michael Buffer, who I managed for over 30 years, uh, known for his great "Let's get ready to rumble" phrase, which we trademarked together and built into the brand that it is. And I only met
They're
him when I
both
was 20.
epic.
Thank you. I only met him when I was 28 years old. We did not grow up together. I found out about him on TV. That's a whole nother story. He said, watch video of yourself, right? And that is the teaching aid right there. It's painful to watch video of yourself,
Mm.
right? But you learn from it. But also in the entertainment world and the sports world is what we call reps. And that's every time you do a show, you get another rep. So you get more experience under your belt to refine who you are and refine your performance. I mean, yes, I'm an announcer, but I consider myself a performer. And it's not show business, it's show biz. I mean, let's make it exciting for everybody. I can't stand still. I did that in the beginning and realized that wasn't the life for me as an announcer. I need to be able to move, to show my passion and my energy, um, and heighten that moment for the fighters inside the octagon as well as the fans watching. So it's a style.
Mm.
I developed my own style over the years, based through trial and error, shall we
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that, mate. So street smarts, obviously, you learn a lot on the tools yourself as you did this thing and as you built it out. But then you realize the reps, like how important those reps were as you did, and the
Yeah,
consistent. Sounds like the consistency as well, right? Over time, getting better and better, continually refining yourself, critiquing yourself to make sure you're just getting better and better each time.
yeah. I wanted to develop my own style. I didn't want to be
Yeah.
recognized as like Frank Sinatra Jr. I didn't want because I was Michael's manager and brother. So and it worked. It worked. I told myself in the first 3 years if I didn't, I would quit, and
Yeah.
didn't have to. So
No, I love that, man. I love that, mate. I'm curious. If you wouldn't mind touching on what you believe is the number one character trait of the top 1%, right? You've been in and around so many fighters, right? You've seen so many fighters come and go through their journeys, obviously from the very start to then when they're getting to the back end of their careers as well. What do you believe is that number one character trait that separates the average fighters from the ones that get to the top?
passion for what you're doing, truly believing in yourself and what you're doing, and having that passion so that when you get knocked down on the canvas, as Rocky said, you got to get up and move forward and punch harder than ever. And the same thing, mentality of a fighter relates to mentality for business, right? Same thing, having passion for what you do. If you can find out what you're passionate about and monetize it, then you're living a lifestyle. You're not just going to work and believing in the product. The product for a salesman is the product he's selling. The product for a fighter is himself. When that octagon door closes, no matter who's on your team, and thank God for your team that gives you all that support, you're the loneliest position in the world. It's just
Mm.
you against an opponent that wants to take your head off, right? So you need to believe in yourself. And if you're just fighting for the money, and you're going to have a hard time having a long career. Money's great, trust me. Everybody's fighting for the money, but there's got to be a real belief in yourself and what you're doing, and a
Yeah.
goal,
So the
and a goal to be the best you can be.
Yeah, I
But
love that. So
my,
the passion in what you're doing, you have to have that
passion.
passion piece. And then, because that's going to drive you, right? Especially in the hard times, especially like the bounce backs and everything as well. The passion's going to get you there. If you're just there for the money, it's going to fall away, right? Whereas if you've got that passion to be the best, that's what it sounds like you're really sort of
Absolutely,
typifying there.
absolutely. I mean, if it's a business, even in a relationship, the passion has to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, mate. I love that. Mate, I've got one final question for you. Your voice is so recognizable. There's almost no one I would think, especially in the sporting world, that wouldn't know who you are. I even told my mum, mate, my mum knew who you were because it's like, it's time. Like, it's such an iconic
Mom, I
phrase, right?
love that. I love that.
Mate, I've got to ask, what do you think is the key elements to building, almost like something beyond just the sport? You know what I mean? Like something so big. It's like you've built that brand so powerfully. What do you think are the key points or the key factors that really allowed you to build that brand and understand how to build it and double down on it and make it so iconic?
Well, we get back to the word passion. We've already gone
Okay.
over that.
Yeah.
Uh, Being a product of your products. When you talk about a product, if you don't truly believe in it, it's going to be kind of obvious in the
Yeah.
energy you give off. So believing in your product, where passion comes in key to that, representing your product, being a product of the products, as I said, and being consistent in everything you do, right?
Yeah.
And also being relevant to your brand, where your brand is uniform. Very simply, one key thing is if your company is ABC, then your website should be ABC, your business card should be ABC, your email should be ABC, and just representing it. So when you talk to people, you captivate your audience and they can see. I mean, if you're selling insurance, there's a million people out there selling insurance. Why do you stand out from anybody else? If you're selling
Mm.
real estate, there's many people that sell real estate. Why are you standing out by anybody else? And obviously, it's the way you speak about your product and the way you represent it. And there's one thing to be a salesman; it's another thing to be a tellman. So, talking with people and having them
What do
sell
you
them.
mean by that?
Well,
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
some salesmen come across strong, and it's obvious that they're selling, which is fine.
Mhm.
Always ask for the sale, but understand. I'm a big poker player, so there's a saying: "Don't play the cards, play the player." So,
Okay.
understand who you're talking to, and apply yourself or represent and communicate with that person the way you know that they're going to grab it and absorb it, right?
Yes.
So you don't just want to talk at somebody, you want to talk with somebody, right?
Okay.
And show that you have their best interests at hand. That's where the trust factor comes in. and their
Yeah.
comfortability. Like I said, why give me a reason why, you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio said at Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen, right?
Mm.
Why do I need that pen?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, mate. I love that. Mate, one final question I had for you is, who is the most interesting character that you've met in the UFC?
Oh, wow, that's so difficult. Oh my gosh. There's so many. Again, it's just there's been so many, so many. I mean, George St. Pierre to
Is
me
any,
is the greatest. Pardon me?
sorry. No, sorry, mate. Sorry. Please go.
George St. Pierre is probably one of the greatest role models ever in the UFC all the way around. God, I've met them all. I met them all. I mean, you can talk about Conor McGregor, but half the people want to see him lose and half the people see him win because he had a chance to be the greatest role model in the history of sports, but he did things along the line where he lost that allure. Yet he still is hugely popular and doing very, very well. But if you want to talk about interesting for the ups and the downs, yeah, that's an interesting character. Um, Chuck Liddell is one of my favorite of all time,
He's a
going back
beast.
and forth. I could go on and on and on. There's so many
Yeah.
interesting characters. I've had the honor of meeting, so many of them. Rampage Jackson, if you remember Rampage Jackson, is
Yeah, of course.
one of the most interesting cats you'll ever meet. And you got great fighters from New Zealand and Australia, Robert Whitaker and Adesanya, and there's a lot of great characters all over. That's one of the things
Yeah.
I love about the UFC is that in the 29 plus years I've been doing this, I've maybe met 5 not so desirable characters for certain
Really?
reasons. For the most part, everybody is so cool. I mean, being martial arts backgrounds, strength and honor, pride, respect. It's a great arena to work in. It really is.
I love that, mate. I love that. I love that that's your view of everyone. There's obviously so many interesting characters within it as well. It was cool that you went to GSP as number one because he's got to be one of the goats, man. He's an absolute beast. So
Without question, he's a goat. John Jones is an interesting character, but like Connor, he's had these ups and downs, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. Bruce Buffer, mate, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. And mate, I'm so pumped to continue seeing you absolutely crushing it moving forward as well, mate. So thank you so much for your time.
listen, I really appreciate your words, Sam. Thank you again so much. One other thing I'd like to tell you too is that whether you're first, second, or third champion or not, if you're performing at your best, then you're winning, right?
Mm.
Be honest, be truthful, be a role model, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And if the world lived that way, we'd have a lot less problems, I think. I really do.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And you can tell, mate, the passion, the fact you've come through. I've seen it before, like the videos and stuff, man. And you're 100% right. You could charge so much more for them. But the impact you're having on certain people, on so many people's lives, mate. Like you said, 20 of those a week for like walking down the aisle and birthdays, the rest of the thing. Mate, it's amazing, man. So, it's hats off to you, mate. Honestly, you're an inspiring character, mate. And it's awesome seeing you still crushing it after so long in the game, crushing it, man. So it's awesome to see, man. Hats off to you.
I'll be 68 next week. I'll keep going. I promise.
Happy birthday, mate. Big happy birthday for you.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate all your kind words, Sam. It's a real pleasure being on your show, and I wish you all the best of success. As I like to say, big cheers and no fears forever.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bruce Buffer, mate. Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you. Wow, what a bloody episode. I don't know about you guys, but that for me was an absolutely surreal experience. I've still got goosebumps left on my arms after wrapping up with Bruce and how much passion and energy he brings to the table, literally even with the podcast. And you can hear the passion that's in his voice about how much he loves doing what he still does. Now, guys, if you enjoyed today's episode or you know someone that loves Bruce Buffer or the UFC, make sure you send this podcast on. We want to make sure we're building the community of people that are listening to this sort of content, that are trying to build themselves into the top 1%. And if you've got your circle around you, you're trying to build them into the top 1% as well. Podcasts like this will help you keep leveling up. Now, the way that we keep getting guests like Bruce Buffer and big names like that is by being able to share this around, building the community, making sure that you guys are subscribing so that as soon as these new podcasts are coming out, but especially sending those podcasts on, guys. So the more that you send it on, the more that we're going to get massive guests like Bruce Buffer. So please do so, guys. And until next week, guys, that's a wrap for another Top 1% podcast.